representative, and he will take them forward. Thank you.
It'll be very short. Welcome to sunny Didcot. It's not always like this. It's a great pleasure to welcome you to the Autumn Steam Gala in 1466 after an incredible 6.5 years restoration. When 1466 was first purchased in 1963 for £760, few could have imagined that its restoration would one day cost nearly 1,000 times that amount. My own first encounter with this wonderful engine was at the Forest of Dean 5 years ago, and I'd just like to say with confidence that it's here today thanks in no small part to the determination and perseverance of Phil Morrow, who we're speaking later today. As with all steam locomotives, the journey back to steam is never straightforward, but today we see the results of countless hours of dedication, skill and passion. On behalf of everyone here, I would like to thank all who were involved in bringing 1466 back to life. We are really truly grateful. I'd like to introduce David Lamar, who's a very important contributor to this story. Thank you, Clive. My name is Dave Lamar. I am young and youthful and sprightly. I'm certainly not old enough to be involved with the purchase of this locomotive. That's my father, so I'm talking in his place. Hopefully, this too boring a history lesson. If I see you getting fidgety and wandering off and going to get a cup of coffee, I'll take pity. What I'd like to do is just take you through a little bit of the history of how this locomotive was acquired and what it means to the society and the organisation that we see here. Now I live in South Devon. It's a bank holiday weekend. We left very early this morning, mainly because I wanted to be absolutely certain we were here on time, and I'll explain why later on, but it was critical that we were here before this event took place. So, I'm afraid I'm reading, so please bear with me. I think you might know that the origins of the preservation of this locomotive and the formation of the Great Western Society, subsequently Didcot Railway Center, lie in the desire in 1961 of four schoolboys to change one of the GWR's smallest 48-ton draft locomotives, which is what this is. Rather than see all of this scrap that was planned at the time. One of that number, a gentleman named John Barley, was a typewriter. So he was deputised to write a letter to the Railway magazine stating their aim of raising enough money, £1,130 at that point was the price quoted by British Railways, to buy an example. This laudable ambition was then largely forgotten about until the letter was published later on in the year. Donations started to arrive, so more concrete action had to be taken, as they say. So, the succeeding 2 years, saw more monies donated and funds raised, albeit very slowly. The Railway Preservation, now Heritage Movement, in the UK, sorry, it's the paper, was at that time in its infancy, with the standard gauge Bluebell Railway in East Sussex and several narrow gauge lines in Wales being the few successful examples of a myriad of proposed schemes. No how-to manual existed detailing the process of purchasing a full-size steam railway locomotive or raising the necessary funds, let alone the subsequent questions of preparation, storage, maintenance, insurance, all those things if those efforts were successful. The name of the organisation changed subtly over this time from the initial 48XX Preservation Society, which is a very focused title, to the Great Western Preservation Society, which is the complete opposite, and which stated amongst its aims, I believe, restoration and purchase of the main line from Paddington, and gradually moved across to the simpler Great Western Society, which is what exists now. Fundraising was not helped by many so-called railway enthusiasts who, riding the efforts of the GWS members' efforts, Slowly, however, the bank balance rose until by September 1963, £623 had been donated or promised by 90 members. A letter that was then circulated to those members stating that time was running short as remaining examples of the class were being consigned to scrapyards and there was a real danger of missing the boat. By October, £718 had been raised from 110 members. And at that point it was felt that a concrete approach could be made to British Railways to buy a locomotive. BR had stated that they were becoming heartily sick of the ever-increasing number of inquiries being made to purchase locos and stock, most of which they felt to be ill-considered, so time was of the essence in all sorts of different ways. Now it's time to get the Ian Allen Spotter's books out. A number of the few remaining examples of the class have been considered for purchase, but often made their final journey to the scrapyard before they could be considered, or were disregarded due to poor condition and high mileages. Amongst these were 1470, 25 and 71, all of which went to scrap before action could be taken, plus 1442. Eventually, two locos became prime contenders, 1466 here, and 1450, which is also on the site today. And it was anticipated that they would become available at the right time. Both had benefited from recent heavy overhauls and with good mechanical condition. Now that was important because at the time there was no thought of any of these locos having further overhauls later in their life. It was run them for as long as you can and then put them in a museum. So the better you could buy at the time, the longer usage you would get. 1450 had the advantage of what is called top feed. It's in as-built condition. Over there you'll see the top of the boiler is missing the funny little box that's on the top of it. But 1466 was known by its crews and workshop foremen as being what they used to call a good one. David Rouse, who was an ex-Newton Abbot fireman and key supporter of the GWS at this time, was of huge help in this regard, arranging for access to Swindon Works records and assisting in mechanical inspections. On this basis, a carefully considered offer of £750 was made for 1466, which was accepted. Where could the locomotive be stored was a question that had been answered by a member named Bob Saunders, who was a director of Scouting Contractors and who often offered use of that firm's well-connected yard at Totnes in Devon. 1466 was duly delivered in steam early on the 18th of March 1964, somewhat earlier in the day than the local GWS representative, my father, had been advised to expect, and hence he wasn't present and got there an hour late. So that's why I want to be on time today. Mr. Saunders rapidly summoned the Totnes station master, who earlier in the day had made a panic phone call regarding the loco which had suddenly and unexpectedly been parked in one of the railway station platforms. And Mr. A. Christensen, the ex-loco superintendent, plus Harry Sanderson, the BR mechanical inspector for the Plymouth division, joined him for the official handover in front of various newspaper and TV reporters. We therefore have the Western Morning newspaper to thank for the only photograph of the actual handover, which has been reproduced in the pamphlet you might have seen today. The original schoolboys were able to steam the loco shortly afterwards, but only after one of their number had been dispatched into Totnes to buy a box of matches to light the fire. Before the end of the year, 1466 had been joined by another locomotive, 1363, which was in the works. And two carriages, which are in one in the carriage there, one are in the front of the agency. After an aborted plan to join the formative Dark Valley Railway in their scheme to buy and operate a local branch line, all of these were moved in December 1967 to here, to what has become Didcot Railway Center, and they've remained here ever since. So, on the face of it, the initial aim of the four schoolboys was achieved. An example of the 48 double-decker class locomotive was saved from the fate of being scrapped. But the process of so doing involved learning many lessons, developing contacts, establishing how things work within the huge and politically influenced bureaucracy of British Railways, relationships are sought out and respected with various levels of British Railways management, including the then Chief Mechanical Engineer, Deputy General Manager, Deputy Chief Locomotive Inspector. These are all high-level positions, as well as the more local locomotive drivers and shop masters. All of this ultimately facilitated obtaining the use of the present site at Didcot and the Bluebell Society's locomotive stock tour. It's no coincidence that the handover of 1466 in March 1964 was made in front of a locomotive superintendent and a divisional mechanical inspector. Both of those individuals recognised that this embryonic organisation warranted their help and respect. I'm almost done. The ability to negotiate with those of BR handling the sale of locomotives continued to be refined, avoiding a bullet-the-gate approach in favour of quiet tact and diplomacy. Such an approach led directly to the removal of BR's covenant, precluding the ability of the owner of the South Wales scrapyard to sell on to preservations over 200 steam locomotives, which he had purchased, and those locomotives have become the backbone of Britain's railway heritage movement today. Members of the society with deeper pockets learned that they could trust those managing this relatively young and small organisation, and soon started funding the purchase of other locomotives and carriages, all of which were put in the care of the society and where they've remained ever since. From a personal perspective, I was present on the day of the handover of 1466 in March 1964, wearing my natty blue romper suit with reins attached as a 2-year-old. I have a photograph to prove it. Not that I'm going to show you, but I obviously have no memory of it. However, all of my formative memories are of 1466 and other locos at Totnes and latterly at Didcot in the 60s and 70s. I think it's important to remember that organisations such as the GWS are not just about the artefacts, but also the people whose lives have been structured and influenced, hopefully in a good way, by them. I love the fact that my memories of 1466, people like Viv and Frank, extend for very nearly my entire lifetime, and it's wonderful today to witness 1466 starting a fresh journey of her own.
Hello there. My name's Frank Dumbleton. I was one of the very early members of the society, and the original 4 were friends of mine, but I wasn't one of the original 4. I had the misfortune to be at boarding school in Surrey, and I only went train spotting in Southall during vacations. Now, if you look at the back of your programme, you'll see a photograph of 4 smelly Herberts on the footbridge at Southall. Angus is the one crouching down behind the camera. Graham Perry is on the left. John Barlow is on the right, although he claims he never smoked and he never wore a beret. And back behind them, it's not Mike Peart, but it looks a bit like it could have been Mike Peart. And while you're here today, don't forget to go round towards the steam rail motor shed, where there's a section of the same footbridge. So you can stand on the footbridge where wheels stood in the 1960s, and we could watch this wonderful free show of all the trains going through the main line, and the engines going onto the engine shed, which were mainly small engines, large, dirty, heavy freight engines. And then there were a few of these 1400s. I sent Mike Peart an email earlier this week and said, do you have any ideas? And he said, they liked the 1400s because they were adorable. Now, do you think this engine's adorable? Shout yes! Anybody doesn't think she's adorable? No, no, no. So the eyes have it. That's great. So they wrote this letter to the railway magazine. It got published, and then John Barlow, whose address was on the letter, he was on holiday in the Lake District. He came back from his holiday and found that several people had written supporting his idea, and among the letters was a letter from St John's College in Cambridge from a Mr. B.H. Farmer, and that made John panic because here we had a Cambridge academic promising £10, and of course we had all just done our O-levels, so we felt rather overwhelmed by this. And John came cycling up to the footbridge, touching these letters and saying, "What the hell do we do now?" And somebody said, "Let's have a committee meeting." And John Barlow and Angus could make a meeting the next day. I said I could go along as well. So Angus and I cycled over to John's house in Hounslow, and we drafted a letter that said it was our first tentative attempt, and we detailed John off to write the letters on his typewriter, and then we didn't have much else to do that evening, and John's father luckily was on holiday, and he had a hi-fi which was quite rare in 1961, and there was a record that took Angus's fancy that was Big Noise from Winnetka by Sandy Nelson. So let's see if we can get up Big Noise from Winnetka. I think we've been defeated by the technology on that one. So anyway, that evening we played Big Noise from Winnetka. Angus got very excited by it. He got a stick and ran round the house bashing everything in time to the music, and John was very worried that Angus was going to smash one of the demijohns that his parents used to brew wine in, but we got away with it. And David has mentioned that the original society broadened its scope by becoming the Great Western Society, and that was a brilliant stroke by the full 16-year-old founders, because they suddenly broadened it from a locomotive fund to a National Preservation Society. And the reason we were able to get away with stealing the Great Western brand, which is the most potent brand in railway history, was that there was a certain Stanley Raymond, who was the general manager of the Western region at the time. Now, he had been appointed, and it was said he started a reign of terror to destroy the traditional practices of the Great Western Railway. So while they were intent on destroying the Great Western, we stole their brand and ran with it, and that was the basis of our future future success. And in your programme, you'll see the story of how we came to Didcot, because David Patterson, who was the divisional manager, local divisional manager at Reading, was embarrassed because one of our later purchases was number 6106 that was living in a goods shed at Taplow. David Patterson went past with the same Stanley Raymond, who had been he had been promoted to be chairman of the British Railways Board, and he saw 6106 and he said, "Funny, I thought we'd scrapped all those." So David Patterson decided it would be better for us to move somewhere less visible from the main line, like Didcot Engine Shed. So that was how we got here. And then a few months later, Stanley Raymond was sacked by the Minister of Transport, Barbara Castle. So that was the end of his career. So we arrived here at the end of 1967 on an epic journey from Devon behind 1466 and Burton Agnes Hall, which is in the engine shed today. So that's how it all started. I'll now hand you over to Phil Morell, who's going to talk about restoring 1466 this time around. Thank you.
Well, firstly, it's great to see everyone from Heritage Railways, the old founders, and even all the old friends and families that was basically from the early people, which is all great and thanks. Where do I start? It's been quite a roller coaster, really. To say it would be an understatement of the century. It's been an epic hike from the get-go, and it's not been easy in any way, shape or form, really. I have to say a massive thank you to the West Somerset and also the Forest, whose value for getting this loco back and working has been absolutely critical, really. Its latest overhaul has been quite far most extensive since BR. The boiler itself has received 2 new boiler barrels. Its actual firebox inside has received 2/3 of a new copper firebox. And whilst all that's gone on, we've also had the whole of the chassis had basically nearly new rebuild. So it's from the ground up been an absolute masterpiece of work and heritage engineering. It's fair to say that 1466 will now be with us for many years to come. In fact, it will probably mostly outlive us all, really, including myself and probably quite a few others. It may have been a long road, but overall it's been very much worth it. And for all who've been involved with it, you should be very proud of what you've achieved. I must say a big thank you to 2 people. One is Bob Mainley and also Lee Groom. Throughout this project have always been there to help me guide and encourage me through this. And you've looked throughout this, have been a great deal. We all know the story of the 4 boys at Severn, to what Frank and David has gone through. But to see it back has basically brought so much joy to some of the old places and new. I can only hope it brings as much joy to everyone that comes to see it in the future, present and whenever, as I have for the past 6.5 years. Some say I might have had a short straw in overhauling it, but in terms of getting through it all, everything has been greatly worth it, and I can only hope that it lives on. So thank you all. If I can quickly grab everyone that's been involved in the project, so we can have a few photographs, then we'll go for a quick spin. Yes, that does include you, Ryan. And then we can go and have some fun. So thank you all very much for coming, and I hope you enjoy your day.
Oh, you don't need my help.
Nice to meet you.
Well done. You don't see enough ball around here anymore. Which way for you.
Pioneering support. We can't do what we do here at Didcot without you guys, our public. The friends and family of the four founders are here today. Some of them have travelled quite a great distance to be with us, so I just want to say thank you to everybody who's come and supported us over the years. I always get emotional when I do these things, but it's really great to have so many people out and about. So thank you for coming to see the launch of 1466 and over its little drive through the inaugural banner to formally welcome it back into traffic. It will sit on the turntable for approximately an hour, and then it will go off on our main demonstration line where it will run auto working for the rest of the day. So thank you very much everybody for coming, and we hope to see you again soon.
Gonna stay that way.
Because I got to do lunchtime.
Remember, I got pictures of it riding. Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you're enjoying your visit to Didcot Railway Center. Our branch line train is still running, so you're welcome to get on that. Coming down to the other end of the site, which is through now the full gauge engine. And on our little station line, 1466, with an auto station, it's about to start to take passengers on the main line. We hope you enjoyed your visit today. Don't forget our road notice hangout is open. Our area counter, our meeting, all the things like that. Please enjoy everything that we have to offer.
platforms for